The grand hall of the celestial palace glowed with bioluminescent light, as Princess Zeralia paced nervously, her long silver hair floating behind her in the low gravity, her six-fingered hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her ceremonial robes. Ambassador Krell watched with concern, his facial tentacles twitching with anxiety. The human delegation arrives within the hour. Your Highness, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the soft humming of the atmospheric regulators. I understand your apprehension, but this alliance is crucial for our survival. Zeralia stopped her pacing to gaze out the crystalline viewport at the stars beyond her homeworld. Neavix had once been a mighty empire, but the recent plague had devastated their population, leaving them vulnerable to the advancing Dresnar collective. Now they needed allies, and the humans with their resilient biology and advanced weaponry were their only hope. I have studied their history, Krell. She hissed, her inner eyelids blinking rapidly, a sign of distress among her people. They are violent, unpredictable creatures who destroyed their own ecosystems before reaching the stars. How can we trust them with our future? Krell moved closer, his 7-feet-tall frame dwarfing the princess. Despite her royal stature, the terms are clear. Your Highness, the Alliance requires a royal binding ceremony. It is our oldest tradition, and the humans have agreed to honor it. The princess felt her hearts beating frantically against her chest. The thought of being bound to a human male sent shivers of dread through her body. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors. Their physical strength alone was terrifying to most species, and their unpredictable emotions made them dangerous. The palace alert system chimed softly, indicating an approaching vessel. Zeralia moved to the communication panel, pressing her palm against it to receive the update. Their ship has entered our atmosphere. Your Highness, the voice of the Royal Guard commander announced. They will dock at the ceremonial platform in 20 minutes. Zeralia straightened her posture, summoning all the dignity her royal lineage had instilled in her. Prepare the welcoming delegation and alert the High Council, she commanded, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. As the princess made her way to the royal preparation chamber, her attendants swarmed around her, applying the traditional greeting oils and attaching the ceremonial jewelry that signified her status, each piece containing data crystals with thousands of years of her lineage. They say the human ambassador is called Samantha Winters, whispered one attendant as she attached a glowing gem to the princess crown. She is their chief diplomat, but the male chosen for the binding ceremony is a warrior. Zeralia felt her stomach tighten. A warrior, of course they would send a killer to seal our fate. The grand ceremonial platform was awash with light when Zeralia arrived with her entourage, the High Council, members already assembled in their ceremonial formation, their scaled bodies adorned with the symbols of their respective provinces. The air was thick with anticipation as the human vessel completed its docking sequence. The ship was smaller than Zeralia had expected, sleek and silvery with the emblem of the United Earth Alliance emblazoned on its hull. It seemed almost delicate compared to the massive Neavixian royal ships. The docking ramp extended with a soft hiss, and the first human, emerged. Ambassador Samantha Winters was tall for a human female, with dark skin and hair arranged in intricate patterns, her diplomatic uniform adorned with symbols of rank and achievement, her face arranged in what Zeralia recognized from her studies as a smile. Greetings, Royal Highness Princess Zeralia of the Celestial Throne of Neavix. The human ambassador spoke her translator perfectly, rendering her words in the royal dialect. I bring greetings and friendship from Earth and the United Alliance. Zeralia performed the traditional greeting, her hands forming the sacred symbols. Neavix welcomes you. Ambassador Winters, may the stars witness our meeting. The formalities continued as the human delegation emerged from the ship, each member introducing themselves according to protocol. Zeralia felt her anxiety growing as each moment passed, for the human chosen to be her bound mate had not yet appeared. Then a figure appeared at the top of the ramp, and Zeralia felt her breath catch. In her throat, he was tall even for a human, with broad shoulders and a strong physique that was evident even beneath his formal attire. His hair was the color of Neavixian sunset copper, and gold intermingled his skin, pale compared to the ambassador. Your Highness, Ambassador Winters continued, "May I present Lieutenant Noah Barrett of the Earth Defense Force, who has been chosen for the honor of the binding ceremony." The human male descended the ramp with a grace that surprised Zeralia. He moved, like a predator, confident and controlled. But there was something else, something she had not expected. He approached and performed a perfect Neovixian royal bow, a gesture that must have taken considerable study and practice. "Princess Zeralia." He spoke, his voice deeper than the ambassador, his translator rendering his words with perfect inflection. "I am honored to meet you and humbled by the traditions of your people." Zeralia steeled herself to look directly at the human, preparing for the wave of revulsion she had anticipated based on her studies of their species. But as her gaze met his, something unexpected happened. His eyes were not the cold, merciless orbs she had expected. Instead, they were a deep green, like the sacred forests of Neavix, with flecks of gold catching the light, and in those eyes she saw not brutality, but something entirely unexpected. Kindness, depth, and perhaps most surprising of all, uncertainty. The human was nervous too. The realization struck her like a physical force. This creature from a warrior species feared by many across the galaxy was standing before her. Feeling the same apprehension, she felt the same uncertainty about binding his fate to an alien being. "The binding ceremony will take place tomorrow at the rising of our twin moons." Zeralia found herself saying, her voice steadier than she expected. "Tonight we feast in honor of our new alliance." The formal reception proceeded according to ancient protocol, with the exchange of symbolic gifts and ceremonial words. But Zeralia found her attention continually drawn to the human male, to Noah. His movements, his expressions seemed to convey more than his translated words. Later, as the diplomatic teams began detailed negotiations in the High Council chamber, Zeralia found herself in the palace gardens with Noah, a traditional time for potential bound mates to become acquainted before the ceremony. "Your world is beautiful, Princess," Noah said as they walked among the floating luminescent plants, "unlike anything I have seen in my travels." "You have traveled extensively?" she asked, watching how he observed everything with evident wonder. 27 planetary systems, he replied. "I was part of the first contact team for 7 of those missions." Zeralia paused beside a reflecting pool where crystal fish swam in intricate patterns. "Then you are not primarily a warrior." Noah smiled, a gesture she was beginning to find less alien. "I am a soldier, yes, but my specialty is xenobiology and cultural integration. I study life and how different species can coexist." "Yet your people chose you for this binding ceremony," she observed. "I was told it would be a warrior." "I volunteered," he said simply, meeting her gaze with those remarkable eyes. "When I learned about the plague that affected your people, about your struggle and your culture, I wanted to help forge this alliance." "You volunteered?" Zeralia repeated the concept, strange to her, knowing you would be bound to an alien princess on a distant world. Noah looked up at the unfamiliar constellations visible through the atmospheric dome. "My parents were both xenobiologists. They raised me to believe that the universe is made richer by its diversity, that different species have much to teach one another." He looked back at her. "I believe this alliance can benefit both our peoples." As the night progressed, Zeralia found herself sharing stories of her world, its history and traditions, while Noah spoke of Earth, of its diverse ecosystems and cultures, of its troubled past and hopeful future. With each exchange, the alien nature of the human seemed to diminish when the twin moons began, their ascent signaling the approaching hour of rest. Zeralia realized that her dread had been replaced by curiosity, perhaps even anticipation. "Tomorrow we will be bound according to the ancient traditions," she said as they returned to the palace. "Our fates will be linked, as will the fates of our peoples." Noah nodded, his expression serious, but his eyes, those remarkable eyes, showed not resignation but resolve. "I know the responsibility this carries, Princess, and I promise you this: I will honor your traditions, your people, and you." As they parted ways for the night, Zeralia watched the human walk away, his form silhouetted against the palace lights. She thought of all the stories she had heard about humans, their wars, their passions, their unpredictability. But now she wondered how much more there was to learn about them. Dawn arrived with a burst of crimson light. As the primary sun of Neavix rose above the crystalline mountains, Zeralia had barely slept. Her mind's filled with thoughts of the coming ceremony and the human who had defied all her expectations. Her royal attendants arrived with the ancient binding robes, garments woven with living threads that would adapt to bond with her mate, regardless of species. The Neavixian scientists had worked tirelessly to ensure the material would recognize human biology. The sacred oils have been prepared. Your Highness, the eldest attendant said, her voice reverent. They have been modified with elements from the human homeworld to facilitate the binding. Zeralia nodded as they began the elaborate process of preparation. Each layer of the ceremonial attire represented an aspect of her royal lineage, and the binding ceremony itself was thousands of years old, older even than space travel among her people. In another part of the palace, Noah was undergoing his own preparations, guided by Ambassador Winters and a team of Neavixian cultural experts. The binding is more than symbolic, the ambassador explained as technicians applied the modified ceremonial markings to Noah's skin. The neural synchronization will create a real connection between you and the princess, one that our scientists believe will strengthen over time. Noah sat perfectly still as the cool liquid was painted across his shoulders and chest in intricate patterns that matched those Zeralia would wear. Will I still be me after this ceremony? He asked, his voice calm, despite the gravity of the question. Ambassador Winters smiled reassuringly. All our research indicates that the binding enhances rather than diminishes the participants. You will remain Noah Barrett, but you will gain understanding of Princess Zeralia in ways that would otherwise take years to develop. As the twin suns reached their apex, the great temple of celestial unity, filled with dignitaries from both Earth and Neavix. The ancient structure with its living crystal walls pulsed with energy that seemed to respond to the collective emotions of those gathered. Within, High Priestess Valara stood at the center of the circular chamber, her translucent robes shifting colors with each movement. The most senior religious leader on Neavix, she had personally overseen the adaptation of the binding ritual to accommodate. A human participant, Princess Zeralia, entered from the eastern portal, her ceremonial robes flowing around her like liquid silver, her royal crown embedded with living crystals that amplified her thoughts. For the binding ritual she moved with practiced grace to the center of the chamber where the High Priestess waited. From the western portal, Noah appeared, his human form now adorned with the modified ceremonial attire of a Neavixian royal consort. The blue and gold patterns painted on his exposed skin glowed softly, reacting to the energy fields within the temple. He walked steadily forward, his eyes fixed on Zeralia as they met at the center of the chamber. A hush fell over the assembled crowd. This was no ordinary binding. This was the first interspecies royal binding in the history of Neavix, a moment that would be recorded in the living archives for all time. Who comes before the celestial unity to be bound? High Priestess Valara intoned, her voice echoing throughout the chamber. Zeralia, daughter of the celestial throne, 17th of her line, protector of the sacred knowledge. The princess responded according to tradition. Noah Barrett of Earth, son of Catherine and William Barrett, explorer of worlds and seeker of knowledge. Noah responded, his voice clear and unwavering. The High Priestess raised her 4 arms toward the crystal dome above where the light of the twin suns converged. The stars have guided these 2 beings across the void to this sacred place. Their paths, once separate, now join before the celestial unity. Attendants moved forward, carrying vessels of sacred oils that glowed with bioluminescence. As the High Priestess began the ancient chant, Zeralia felt the familiar hum of energy building within the temple, the living crystals responding to the ritual that had bound royal couples for millennia. Join hands with your chosen one. The High Priestess instructed. Zeralia extended her 6-fingered hand toward Noah, who reached out without hesitation as their hands touched. She felt a strange warmth spread up her arm, the human skin so different from her own. Yet somehow the contact felt right. The High Priestess poured the glowing sacred oil over their joined hands, the liquid seeming to come alive as it covered both human and Neovixian skin, weaving between their fingers, binding them together in a network of luminous strands. With this sacred binding, the fates of two beings become intertwined. The High Priestess continued, as do the fates of their peoples. Let what the stars have joined remain unbroken through the vastness of space and time. Zeralia felt the familiar sensation of the binding ritual, the gentle pressure at the base of her skull as the neural connection began to form. But there was something different, something unexpected, as her consciousness reached out seeking the patterns of her mate she encountered. Not the familiar structure of a Neovixian mind, but something wonderfully alien. Noah's thoughts and emotions flowed differently, structured around a single consciousness rather than the dual minds of Neovixians. Yet there was a beauty to it, a simplicity, and directness that she found fascinating. She sensed his nervousness, his determination, and most surprisingly, his genuine interest in her. Not just as a diplomatic necessity, but as a person. Noah gasped slightly as the neural connection formed his human brain, experiencing something entirely beyond his species. Normal range of sensation, he felt Zeralia's dual consciousness, the primary and secondary minds working in tandem, her thoughts moving in complex patterns that he could sense, but not fully comprehend. Yet beneath the alienness he recognized emotions that felt familiar: curiosity, hope, and a growing respect. The binding has begun, the High Priestess announced as the glowing strands of sacred oil sank beneath the skin of both participants. Now they shall walk the path of unity to complete what has been started. Still holding hands, Zeralia guided Noah toward the ancient pathway that spiraled around the interior of the temple walls. The path of unity was both physical and metaphysical. Each step along the crystalline surface would deepen the neural connection between them. As they walked together, Zeralia became increasingly aware of Noah's memories. They flickered at the edges of her consciousness like stars glimpsed through clouds. She saw Earth through his eyes, a world of blue oceans and green forests, teeming with life so different from her own desert homeworld. She felt his childhood wonder at the night sky, and his determination to explore it. Noah experienced flashes of Zeralia's life growing up in the celestial palace, the weight of royal responsibility placed upon her from birth, the loss of her parents to the plague that had devastated their people, and her fierce determination to save what remained of her civilization. Despite her youth, he felt her initial fear of humans gradually giving way to curiosity. With each step along the spiral path, the connection between them strengthened, becoming more stable, more nuanced. They reached the apex of the pathway where a platform of pure crystal extended out over the assembled crowd below. The binding is complete, the High Priestess declared, her voice echoing throughout the temple. What was separate is now joined: two peoples, two worlds, two futures now interwoven by sacred bonds. The assembled dignitaries erupted in cheers and sounds of approval, the human delegation clapping their hands in their traditional expression of celebration, while the Neovixians performed the ritual harmonic humming that signified joyous occasions. As the formal ceremony concluded, Zeralia and Noah were led to the royal reception hall where the celebration would continue, but both were quiet, absorbed in the strange new awareness of each other that the binding had created. "Can feel your thoughts," Zeralia said softly as they walked side by side. "Not clearly, but like shadows moving behind a curtain." Noah nodded. "And I yours? It's incredible. I can sense your secondary mind working on multiple levels at once. Is that how your people always think?" "Yes," she replied with growing wonder at how different their mental processes were. "Your single consciousness is so focused, so intensely present in each moment. It's fascinating." They entered the grand reception hall, where both human and Neovixian delicacies had been prepared. The celebration was in full swing with music from both worlds, mingling in an exotic harmony that somehow worked despite the differences. Ambassador Winters approached them, her face showing what Zeralia now recognized as genuine pleasure. "Your Highness Lieutenant Barrett, the ceremony was beautiful, truly a historic moment for both our peoples." Before Zeralia could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the palace, the harsh tones cutting through the celebratory atmosphere. Perimeter breach detected multiple vessels entering restricted airspace. The automated security system announced, all Royal personnel proceed to secure locations. The Royal Guard commander rushed into the reception hall, his ceremonial armor replaced with battle gear. Your Highness, we have confirmed sightings of Dresnar scout ships approaching the capital. They must have been watching, waiting for the human delegation to arrive. Zeralia felt a cold dread wash over her. The Dresnar collective had been pressing at their borders for years, taking advantage of their weakened state after the plague. But an attack on the capital during such an important diplomatic event was unprecedented. How many ships? She demanded, slipping immediately into her role as ruler. At least 15 scout-class vessels, Your Highness. The commander reported, possibly a destroyer class in high orbit. Noah stepped forward, his stance shifting subtly from diplomatic guest to military officer. Ambassador, our ship has defensive capabilities. We should contact Captain Laura immediately. Ambassador Winters was already activating her communication device ahead of you. Lieutenant Barrett, Captain Laura, this is Ambassador Winters. We have a situation. We've detected them. Ambassador, came the crisp response. 15 Dresnar scout ships and 1 destroyer-class vessel in high orbit. The scouts are on an attack vector toward the capital. The reception hall erupted into controlled chaos as security personnel began evacuating the guests. Zeralia felt a strange sensation through the newly formed neural link with Noah, a calm focus and analytical clarity that contrasted with her own rising anxiety. Your defense grid is still recovering from the last attack, Noah said, turning to Zeralia, his mind already processing tactical options. But our ship has advanced shielding technology. We might be able to extend a protective field over the palace complex. Zeralia nodded, sensing his strategic thinking through their connection. We need to get to the command center immediately. As they hurried through the palace corridors flanked by guards, from both worlds, Zeralia felt the first impacts as Dresnar weapons struck the weakened planetary shields. The entire structure shuddered under the assault. The command center was a hive of activity, as military personnel from Nayavix worked frantically. To coordinate their remaining defenses, Noah and Ambassador Winters joined them, immediately integrating with the Nayavixian command structure. The Dresnar know exactly where to hit us. The defense minister hissed, his facial tentacles rigid with tension. They're targeting the gaps in our shield grid with precision. Noah studied the tactical display, his mind racing. They must have been gathering intelligence for months. He turned to Ambassador Winters. Captain Laura needs to position the Earth vessel between the palace and the incoming scouts. Our shields can absorb more damage than what remains of the planetary grid. Zeralia watched in amazement as the human officers worked seamlessly with her people, despite having met only hours. Before, there was no hesitation, no cultural confusion in a crisis. They functioned as one. Through their neural link, she sensed Noah's concern, not just for the situation, but for her personally, a protective instinct that ran deep in his psychology. She found it strangely comforting. Your Highness? The communications officer called. We're receiving a transmission from the Dresnar command ship. Zeralia straightened her posture, summoning her royal dignity. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the insectoid features of a Dresnar commander, his compound eyes gleaming with an unnatural light, his mandibles clicking in what the Nayavixians had learned was a gesture of contempt. Princess Zeralia. The commander spoke, his translator rendering his clicks and hisses into understandable language. How unfortunate that your new alliance will be so short-lived. Surrender your palace and your human guests will be permitted to leave unharmed. Resist, and we will reduce your capital to ash. Noah stepped forward beside Zeralia, his presence steady and reassuring. I am Lieutenant Noah Barrett of the Earth Defense Force. This unprovoked attack on our diplomatic mission is an act of war against both Nayavix and Earth. Withdraw your forces immediately. The Dresnar commander chittered what might have been laughter. The humans are known to us, Lieutenant. Your single vessel is impressive but inadequate against our destroyer. Your species has chosen the wrong allies. The transmission cut off abruptly as another barrage shook the palace complex. They're testing our remaining defenses, the defense minister reported, looking for weaknesses before they commit their main force. Through their neural link, Zeralia sensed something. Shift in Noah's mind, a realization forming. They don't know, he said, suddenly turning to Ambassador Winters. The Dresnar don't know about the automated defense platform. The ambassador's eyes widened in understanding. The Aurora system had arrived 2 days ago in a separate vessel. Zeralia looked between them, confusion evident. What defense platform? Noah turned to her, his mind now radiating a controlled excitement that she could feel through their connection. Earth sent an advanced security system ahead of our delegation. It's been in stealth orbit around your second moon, a completely automated defense platform with enough firepower to neutralize a destroyer-class vessel. But it wasn't part of the official diplomatic mission. Ambassador, Winters explained. It was classified a standard security precaution for First Alliance negotiations. Hope flickered through the command center as Noah accessed a secure channel through his personal device. Aurora Command, this is Lieutenant Barrett. Authorization code, Bravo Echo 793, activate defense protocols, immediate threat to diplomatic personnel. A cool feminine voice responded from his device. Authorization confirmed, Lieutenant Barrett. Aurora Defense System online, detecting 15 hostile Scout-class vessels and 1 destroyer-class threat assessment in progress. The tactical display suddenly expanded, showing a new element emerging from behind Neavix's smaller moon, a sleek black vessel unlike any Zeralia had seen. Before it moved with incredible speed, its stealth systems deactivating as it accelerated toward the Dresnar fleet. What is that? The defense minister asked, his voice filled with wonder. The Aurora is an autonomous defense platform, Noah explained, as they watched it approach the enemy vessels. The most advanced protective system Earth has developed. It's designed to neutralize threats without destroying them. On the display, the Aurora deployed what appeared to be energy nets, vast webs of pulsing light that expanded toward the Dresnar scout ships as they came in contact with the nets. The smaller vessels suddenly went dark, their propulsion and weapon systems disabled by the advanced Earth technology. The Dresnar destroyer immediately changed course, attempting to target the unexpected threat, but the Aurora was too fast, too maneuverable. It evaded the destroyer's weapons fire while deploying a series of small objects that attached themselves to the larger vessel's hull. Parasitic EMP devices. Noah explained to the astonished Neavixians. They'll disable the destroyer's systems without harming the crew. Within moments, the Dresnar destroyer began to drift, its lights flickering and dying as the EMP devices did their work. The immediate threat neutralized without a single casualty on either side. The command center erupted in cheers and the equivalent Neavixian expressions of relief, but Zeralia remained focused, her gaze fixed on Noah. Your people could have destroyed them, she said quietly, sensing his thoughts through their link. You had the power to eliminate the threat completely. Noah met her gaze, his green eyes serious. We could have, yes, but that's not who we choose to be. Not anymore. We learned from our past mistakes, Princess. We know the cost of escalation. Through their neural connection, Zeralia sensed the truth behind his words. Earth's violent history, the wars that had nearly destroyed their civilization, and the hard-won wisdom that had emerged from those dark times. The Aurora system was designed to protect, not to destroy. Ambassador Winters added, it's part of our new approach to interstellar relations, neutralize threats without creating new cycles of vengeance. The defense minister approached his posture, showing respect. The Dresnar vessels are completely disabled. Your Highness, our remaining fleet can secure them and take the crews into custody. Zeralia nodded. Ensure they are treated according to interstellar law, Minister. We will show the same restraint our Earth allies have demonstrated. As the immediate crisis passed, the command center gradually emptied, the diplomatic teams returning to salvage what remained of the celebration while security forces dealt with the captured Dresnar vessels. Zeralia and Noah found themselves alone in a quiet alcove off the main chamber. I felt your thoughts during the attack, Zeralia said softly. Your concern for my people, for me? Noah smiled. And I felt yours, your love for your world, your determination to protect it at any cost. I had believed humans to be warriors above all else, she admitted, brutal conquerors who solved problems with force. We were that once, Noah acknowledged. Parts of our history are as dark as you feared, but we evolved, we changed. We realized that true strength lies in restraint and finding solutions that don't create more suffering. Zeralia reached out, touching his face with her six-fingered hand, a gesture of deep intimacy among her people. I see that now, I feel it through our connection. You are not what I feared. Noah covered her hand with his own, the differences in their biology no longer seeming strange but simply part of what made them unique, and you are more than I could have imagined. Through their neural link, emotions flowed freely between them, curiosity, respect, and the beginnings of something deeper, something neither had anticipated when the binding ceremony began. The attack today was only the beginning, Zeralia said, her thoughts turning to the challenges ahead. The Dresnar will return with greater forces once they report what happened here. Noah nodded, but they'll find something they didn't expect. Earth and Nayavik standing together, our strengths complementing each other's weaknesses. 3 days later, the Grand Assembly Hall of the Celestial Palace hosted representatives from both worlds as the formal alliance treaty was signed, Ambassador Winters, and the Nayavixian High Minister, performing the official ceremonies while Zeralia and Noah watched from the royal dais, their bound status now a powerful symbol of the union between their peoples. The first Joint Defense Fleet will arrive within the month, Ambassador Winters announced to the assembled dignitaries, and Earth scientists are already working with Nayavixian medical teams on treatments for the lingering effects of the plague. As the formal proceedings continued, Noah leaned closer to Zeralia, their neural link now stable enough that they could share thoughts without speaking. They're already calling it the Celestial Alliance on Earth. He thought to her, the news broadcasts are filled with images of the binding ceremony. Zeralia smiled in the human way she had quickly adopted, and our historians are recording it as the beginning of a new era. She replied through their connection, though I doubt any of them truly understand what it means. Noah's question flowed through their link. And what does it mean to you, Princess? Zeralia turned to face him, her inner eyelids blinking in the pattern that signified deep emotion among her people. It means that sometimes our greatest fears hide our greatest possibilities. That what seems most alien can become most precious. That evening they stood together on the royal balcony, watching as the twin moons rose above the crystalline spires of the capital city. Earth vessels and Nayavixian ships moved through the night sky, in joint patrol patterns, the first visible sign of their new alliance. I never expected this, Zeralia said, gazing at the stars beyond their world. When they told me I would be bound to a human warrior, I imagined a future of compromise and duty, not understanding. Noah followed her gaze to the stars, his hand finding hers, their fingers intertwining despite their different number and shape. And I never imagined finding connection so far from home, or that an alien princess would teach me more about humanity than a lifetime among my own people. Through their neural link, they shared not just thoughts but emotions. The complex harmonies of two different species finding unexpected resonance together, the binding ceremony had created something entirely new, something neither world had anticipated. The Dresnar commander said we had chosen the wrong allies, Zeralia mused. But I think perhaps for the first time in generations, we have chosen exactly right. Noah smiled, those green eyes that had first surprised her now familiar and dear. Not just allies, he said softly, partners. As the moons climbed higher in the night sky, casting their silver light over the newly united worlds, Zeralia realized that what had begun in fear had transformed into something neither human nor Nayavixian, but something greater than either alone. The binding of two worlds, like the binding of two souls, had created something entirely new, something with the potential to change the course of both their civilizations and perhaps the galaxy itself. And it had begun with a look with eyes that held not brutality, but compassion, not conquest, but connection, with the courage to see beyond fear, to the possibilities that lay hidden within difference. Princess Zeralia of Nayavik stood beneath the stars of her homeworld, her hand joined with that of the human who had changed everything. And for the first time since the plague had devastated her world, she felt not just hope but certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, They would face them together, bound not just by ceremony or necessity, but by something far more powerful: understanding.